I'm merry to be here, folks.
And merrily we all row into Indicators of the Week.
Woo!
That's right, we have looked at interesting numbers in the news this week, and we're here to tell you all about them. On today's episode,
How bad are babies for climate change, really?
how to train your AIs on books and then get sued for it.
And I know you're going to be shocked to hear this, guys, but I'm here to talk about corporate bonds.
The Bond Queen.
Let's go. Woo, woo, woo. After the break.
Okay, indicators of the week. Starting off, Darian, what you got?
My indicator is a heat-related indicator. It's been very hot here in the Northeast. Don't know about where you guys are, but it is sweltering.
Tell me about it.
It's got me thinking about climate change and how much I should blame people having babies.
It is probably almost certainly the baby's fault.
Yes. But what do the numbers say before we accuse, an innocent child? A bunch of economists and demographers from the University of Texas at Austin and the City University of New York wanted to analyze this. So they fed some scenarios into a model. Scenario 1, population growth. The world population grows and grows. People keep having lots of babies. Scenario 2, population decline. So this means that by the year 2200, there are billions more people in the growth scenario. Can you guess which makes the planet hotter?
The one with more people driving more cars, consuming more plastic every day.
Yes, that is
Releasing more burps and belches and farts.
Just tooting everywhere.
That is the obvious answer. But what was surprising is
Wow.
that it's only extremely marginally. The researchers estimated that by the year 2200, so in 175 years, the world would be only less than 0.1 degrees Celsius hotter under the population growth.
It's not a huge increase in the scheme of things.
Correct.
So I guess I'm just curious how that actually works, because I'm pretty sure that children eat
059-539-26.
Hello?
Yes, brother.
require a great deal of driving around and clothing, and just they're very energy intensive. So how could it be that they have only marginal climate effects?
So the insight here is that any shifts in population take many decades to take effect. So even if there was a completely unrealistic decree that nobody can have any babies, what's the population going to be tomorrow? It'll still be 8 billion people. And so it would take decades and decades for the population to really start decreasing meaningfully if people start having much fewer kids. And so the idea is that as we start using electric vehicles more instead of combustion engines, as we electrify our heating, as we use solar power instead of coal, the average really matters for climate change is how carbon intensive our world is over the next few decades, not in these faraway generations.
I mean, we seem to be on the path to having fewer babies anyway, which is actually the topic of an upcoming episode next week.
Yeah, I look forward to hearing more.
This news is going to land like an anvil in the anarchy community, okay? This is going to upend a lot of their assumptions. I look forward to that.
Speaking of upending, let's talk about something that is going to upend potentially our whole industry, which is the world of AI. My indicator has to do with Anthropic, which is the company behind the AI chat software Claude, and the indicator is 7 million. That's the number of pirated books the company downloaded into its own internal database a few years ago. And since then, the company has used some of those pirated books along.
ATA chief economist Bob Costello said the industry's, quote, seesaw freight demand pattern is making it difficult to discern any clear trend in the market, end quote. Speaking of freight, U.S. ports saw a slowdown in May, with some of the largest ports experiencing their first year-over-year decrease in months. The Port of Los Angeles processed 5% fewer 20-foot equivalent units during the month, following 10 consecutive months of growth. The port concluded that May's drop-off was driven by the impact of tariffs on both imports and exports. Despite the dip for the first 5 months of the year, container traffic rose 4% year over year. The Port of Long Beach also reported its first year-over-year decline in months, as volume fell 8.2%. But Port of Long Beach CEO Mario Cordero suggested that recent temporary pauses on tariffs with certain countries could trigger another cargo surge. The facility's container volume for the first 5 months increased 17.2 year over year compared with 2024. Tariff negotiations with the Trump administration are running into roadblocks as partners, including Japan, India, and the European Union, balk at signing deals without knowing how badly they'll be hit by separate levies on exports, including chips, drugs, and steel. The Commerce Department is set within weeks to announce the outcomes of its investigations into sectors deemed vital to national security. The probes are widely expected to result in levies applied under the Trade Expansion Act on a range of foreign-made products in those industries. The problem is governments seeking agreements to whittle down country-by-country tariffs that President Donald Trump announced on April 2nd and then suspended till July 9th. Have no idea where those sectoral levies will land. For many, industry-specific tariffs may be more damaging than the broader levies. That's it for today. Remember, for all the latest trucking and transportation news, go to the experts at ttnews.com.
Spoken Layer. Hey listeners, it's Saturday, June 28th. I'm Francesca Fontana for the Wall Street Journal, and this is What's News in Markets, our look at the biggest stock moves of the week and the news that drove them. Let's get to it. Well, the stock market sure ended this week on a high note. Stocks were on the rise in recent sessions after the ceasefire between Israel and Iran seemed to stick, sending oil prices lower and easing fears of escalating conflict that could seriously disrupt the global energy market. And late on Thursday, President Trump announced that a trade deal had been signed with China, and the White House signaled that more deals were coming. So, as investors were feeling the optimism, the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ Composite both hit new intraday records early in Friday's session. And then, later in the afternoon, stocks pulled back, pairing the day's gains. Why? Because Trump said he was cutting off all trade talks to Canada over what he called an egregious digital services tax on American tech companies. But stocks were bouncing back before the end of the session, and the S&P 500 and NASDAQ still notched record closes on Friday. And all three major indexes posted weekly gains, with the Dow gaining 3.8%, the S&P 500 gaining 3.4%, and the NASDAQ gaining more than 4%. First, let's talk about some oil stocks that were front and center this week. Let's start with Occidental Petroleum, which is a good proxy for how energy stocks have dealt with developments in the Middle East. Occidental shares lost 3.7% on Monday, following oil prices down after the U.S. bombed Iranian nuclear facilities over the weekend. And they kept moving lower on Tuesday, falling 3.3% as traders digested Trump's announcement of Israel and Iran's ceasefire deal, and the continued fire between the two countries that came shortly after the deal had gone into effect. But as the ceasefire held, the stock made smaller moves the rest of the week, ending with a weekly loss of 6.6%. Now let's turn to Shell, which made headlines this week not because of oil prices and global conflict, but because of M&A. The Wall Street Journal reported Wednesday that, per people familiar with the matter, Shell was holding early-stage talks to acquire its rival BP in what would be the largest oil deal in a generation. Shell then denied that talks are taking place, calling it further market speculation. And a BP spokesman declined to comment on the journal's report. U.S. traded shares of Shell declined 1% on Wednesday, rising 2.2% the next day and ending down 2% on the week. Meanwhile,